My brother was drinking whiskey before he hit puberty. By 18, his liver was failing. And my parents still called it a family tradition. I was the only one who said no, and it nearly tore us apart. They say the first thing a child tastes should be something sweet. For me, it was tequila. I was 10, maybe 9. It doesn't matter. I still remember the burn, the way it clawed its way down my throat like fire laced with vinegar. My mother laughed first, then my father, and my older brother, Mason. He clapped me on the back, like I'd just won a prize instead of nearly vomiting on the kitchen tile. That was my initiation. They called it training night, every Friday, like a ritual, like communion, only holier. Because in my family, alcohol wasn't a vice, it was a religion, passed down from our ancestors like a sacred heirloom, and I wasn't allowed to question it. The rules were simple. If you drank without wincing, you earned respect. If you made a face, you dropped to the floor and did push-ups until you collapsed. My dad used to say, "We don't raise quitters in this family. We raise champions." My mom would time our shots with a stopwatch and cheer like we were at the Olympics. I used to look at Mason and wonder how he didn't flinch. He was only 3 years older, but by the time he turned 13, he was already drinking like a grown man, and by 14, he wasn't just part of the tradition. He was the golden boy of it. Our dad adored him. They'd stay up together until dawn in the garage, playing beer pong and blaring AC/DC. My mom would take photos and send them to relatives with captions like, "My boy can outdrink half the neighborhood." Everyone laughed. No one blinked. By 16, Mason got a motorcycle for his birthday. Me, I got warnings. Not because I misbehaved. I didn't. I got straight A's, led the debate team. Saved money from my part-time job at the library and told everyone I was applying to colleges out of state. But that wasn't what they valued. In our house, dignity was weakness, sobriety was betrayal, and ambition was something you apologized for at the dinner table. "Loosen up," my mom would slur, wine sloshing from her glass. "You act like you're better than the rest of us." I used to think maybe I was, not better, just different, like I'd been born into the wrong house, but I never said it aloud. I learned to fake it instead. I poured vodka into potted plants when no one was looking. I bit down on my cheek to make my eyes water, so I'd look buzzed. I laughed at their stories. Even when they scared me, I trained myself to be what they needed. A mirror that didn't reflect back anything ugly. And the worst part, it worked. They started hugging me more. Dad let me skip the push-ups. Mom called me fun again, but I was dying inside. Then came Mason's 18th birthday. The garage was packed with people, neighbors, coworkers, family friends who all showed up with beer in one hand and congratulations in the other. Mason was glowing, drunk, loud, unstoppable. But then I saw him step out to the porch, holding his side like something inside was tearing. "It's nothing." He laughed, pale under the yellow porch light. "Just a cramp." I knew it wasn't. Even through the fog of noise and smoke, I saw the jaundice in his eyes, the pain he was hiding behind bravado. But when Dad saw him, he didn't worry. He didn't ask questions. He brought out a bottle of imported whiskey and slapped Mason on the back. "This'll fix it," he said, like a doctor prescribing poison. That night, I watched my mother pull out her phone and record a video. "For Mason's future kids," she said with a wink, and something inside me snapped. They weren't going to save us. They were going to kill us. Slowly, proudly, and with a toast in hand. When I left for college, 2 months later, it felt less like a beginning and more like an escape. Oregon State wasn't fancy, but it was mine. My randomly assigned roommate was a recovering alcoholic. At first, I panicked, thought she might smell it on me. The lies, the fear, the history, but she didn't. She just smiled and offered me tea. I told her everything, not at once, but over time, and she listened the way no one ever had, like I was worth hearing. She brought me to her sober group on campus, introduced me to people who laughed without being drunk, who hugged without a drink in their hands, who danced and fell and lived without the fog. It was like seeing color for the first time after years in grayscale. I started reading about trauma, about generational addiction, about how entire bloodlines confuse love with destruction, and I realized what we'd called training was abuse dressed in nostalgia, and for the first time in my life, I stopped pretending. But healing is deceptive. It makes you believe, for a moment, that maybe you can go back and rescue the people who hurt you. That's what I told myself when I drove home that Christmas. I thought maybe I could show them the new me. The real me. The one who didn't need shots to feel alive. The one who finally knew the difference between tradition and survival. I even brought alcohol-free wine, photos of my sober community, a brochure about recovery groups near their town. I wanted to believe we could change, but when I stepped through the door, my father grinned and shoved a beer into my hand. "There's our party girl." I smiled politely. "I'm training for a marathon," I said. "No drinking for me." My mother's smile vanished like smoke in cold air. "Oh," she said, "so now you think you're better than your own family." And that was the beginning of the night everything went to hell. It started with footsteps in the hallway, heavy, purposeful, familiar. I was in my childhood bedroom, the same one with glow-in-the-dark stars still clinging to the ceiling like they were too stubborn to fall. I had gone to bed early, hoping distance would diffuse the tension, but in this house, boundaries were just lines waiting to be crossed. The door swung open before I could even sit up. My father entered first, still nursing a half-empty bottle of beer. Behind him came my mother, her lipstick smeared, eyes wild with the kind of certainty only the deeply intoxicated could manage. Between them, they carried a bottle of tequila, the same brand they used on my 10th birthday. "You're not ruining Christmas with this holier-than-thou act," my mother said, her voice curling around the words like poison. I backed away toward the headboard. "I'm not drinking," I said calmly. "I already told you." "Oh, you're drinking," my father growled. "We're not going to let some university shrink wash your brain and make you forget where you came from to..." Then he grabbed me. His hands clamped around my wrists like steel. I kicked, I screamed, but they'd done this dance before. Not with me, maybe, but with Mason, with themselves, with the ghosts of the people who raised them. My mother uncorked the bottle and brought it to my lips. I clamped my mouth shut. That's when my father pinched my nose. A childhood trick we used on puppies when they wouldn't take medicine. I held out as long as I could. But when I gasped for air, the alcohol came rushing in. It hit my throat like fire. I gagged, tried to turn away. It spilled down my chin, soaked into my sweatshirt. I threw up. They laughed. "She's out of practice," Dad said, wiping his mouth and motioning for another round. They didn't stop, not even when I cried, not even when I begged. It wasn't about fun anymore. It was about breaking me back into their world, reminding me that no matter how many books I read or how many miles I ran, I would always belong to them. Oh. Eventually, I stopped fighting. I went limp, faked unconsciousness. They bought it. The door closed behind their retreating laughter, and for a moment, the room was still. But my mind was racing. I crawled to the closet, phone in hand, and hit record, slid it into the crack between the doorframe and the wall. Their voices drifted from the hallway, slurred and triumphant. "She just needed a push," my mom said. "She'll thank us one day," my dad replied. And then I did what I should have done years ago. I called 911. My voice was calm, robotic even. I gave the address, whispered that I'd been assaulted, said the words forced alcohol consumption like I was reading them from someone else's life. I stayed in the closet until I heard sirens. They were faint at first, then louder, closer. Flashing red and blue lights lit up my bedroom walls like a disco from hell. I peeked through the crack and saw them freeze in the living room. Glasses midair, grins evaporating. Mom dropped the tequila. It shattered. Dad pulled the curtain aside and cursed. "They're here!" Everything after that was chaos. Air freshener sprayed like holy water. Broken glass kicked under couches. Mason, my older brother, stumbled down the stairs in a daze. Skin pale, eyes glassy. I hadn't seen him like this since his birthday. Maybe worse. "Stand straight," Dad hissed at him. "Act normal." Then came the knock. "Police, open the door." Dad opened it with the same charm he used to sell insurance to single mothers and old veterans. "Officer's evening. Can I help you? We received a call. Report of a disturbance. Just a quiet family night." Dad lied, smiling like it was stitched into his skin. That's when I stepped out of the hallway. My Oregon State hoodie still smelled like vomit. My eyes were red. My throat burned. The younger officer, a woman, saw me first. "Miss, are you all right?" I opened my mouth. My voice cracked like dry leaves. They forced alcohol down my throat. Before I could finish, my mother wrapped an arm around my shoulders, pulling me close with a grip that felt more like a warning than comfort. "She's confused," she said sweetly. "Our daughter's been struggling with mental health issues. College has been hard. She's not herself lately. She's been unstable," my father added, voice drenched in rehearsed concern. "We've tried to get her help. She refuses. She was drinking in her room alone." Mom whispered. "We were trying to intervene." I tried to speak again, but my words collapsed halfway through. The burn in my throat was too sharp. That's when the female officer gently pulled me aside. "I'm Officer Martinez," she said. "Can we talk outside?" I nodded, out on the porch. The December air slapped my face awake. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recording. I handed it to her. She pressed play. From inside, my parents' voices leaked through the speakers. "She's back now. Told you we could break her." Officer Martinez didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her face told me everything. "I have more," I said. "Photos, videos. Mason's liver is failing. They won't let him get treatment." Her eyes narrowed. "Wait here," she said. She turned back toward the door, and for the first time since I was 10 years old, I felt something that didn't taste like fear. I felt seen. I stayed on the porch, arms wrapped tight around myself, while Officer Martinez walked back into the house with firm steps and a face like stone. Through the frost-glazed window, I could see the scene unfold like a twisted play. My mother gestured wildly, pointing at me like I was some unhinged stranger who had broken into her home. My father, ever the salesman, leaned in close to the other officer, nodding, patting his arm, whispering like this was just a misunderstanding between good people. And Mason, my brother, stood in the middle of it all. His face was pale, his hands trembling at his sides. He clutched the banister like it was the only thing anchoring him to the floor. I could tell he didn't know what to do. His gaze kept shifting between me and them. The sister who had broken the silence, and the parents who had fed him poison with a smile. The door opened again. "Miss Carter," Officer Martinez said, her tone now sharper, more official. "We're going to need everyone to answer a few questions separately. Please come with me." I followed her toward the patrol car, but my eyes were still locked on Mason. He didn't follow. He didn't move. He just stood there, swaying in place like a statue made of grief. At the station, the walls hummed with fluorescent silence. I was led to a small interview room. Beige walls, plastic chairs, a table that wobbled when you leaned on it. A place where the truth had to fight to be heard. Officer Martinez sat across from me, her notepad open. "You told the responding officer that your parents forced you to consume alcohol tonight. That they held you down. Is that correct?" I nodded. My voice came out small. "Yes, and you recorded them afterward." I pulled out my phone and handed it to her. She listened to the recording again. This time, with earbuds. Her expression didn't change, but I saw the tightening of her jaw. "What about your brother? Does he corroborate your account?" I hesitated. He saw it, but he's still under their thumb. Martinez nodded slowly. "That's going to complicate things. I already knew that. I'd known it since I was 15. When my best friend Jessica called CPS on her abusive father, and the bruises weren't enough. They told her it was a misunderstanding. A family matter. After the caseworker left, her dad put her in the hospital. So I never called, not until now, and Without physical injuries," Martinez said gently, "and without your brother's confirmation, the recording helps. But it might not be enough on its own. Your parents are claiming this was an intervention, that you were drunk, that they were trying to stop you from hurting yourself." "I wasn't drunk." I said, "I haven't touched alcohol in 2 years." She nodded. "Do you have anyone who can verify that?" "Yes, my college roommate, my recovery group, my boss, my marathon coach. I'll give you all their numbers." "Good," she said. Then she paused. "There's something else." I waited. "Your parents' attorney arrived while you were en route. His name is Henry Beaumont. I believe he's your uncle." I felt the air leave my lungs. "He's my mom's brother. He's also their drinking buddy. For decades. He came with a folder," she continued, her voice neutral. "Medical documents, therapy reports, even diary entries. All dated years ago." My stomach dropped. "What kind of documents? Blah, tell." Martinez looked up. "They're painting a picture of long-term instability. Claims of paranoia, that you had issues with control, antisocial behavior, episodes of aggression." I closed my eyes. When I was 16, I refused to participate in a family drinking game on Thanksgiving. My parents dragged me to a psychologist the next day. Claimed I was angry, combative, possibly depressed. I was just sober and scared and sick of pretending. They documented everything. They were preparing for this moment long before it came. Martinez leaned forward. "Do you remember keeping a diary when you were younger?" I nodded. "I used to write about wishing I had different parents, about wanting to run away, stuff like that. They included excerpts. They're using them to build a case for mental instability." I laughed, bitter and exhausted. "So I'm crazy because I wrote down the truth before I had the words to say it. I'm not saying I believe them," Martinez replied. "But I want you to understand the level of manipulation we're dealing with. They came prepared. They've done this before, not formally, but they know how to paint a picture." I didn't speak, because what could I say? They were winning. Even now. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a notification. I'd been tagged in a Facebook post. It was from my mother. "Please pray for our daughter tonight. She's struggling with mental health and addiction. We love her deeply, but we don't know how to reach her anymore. She called the police on us tonight. Our hearts are breaking. Over 100 likes, comments from friends, neighbors, church members, prayers up. Sending love. This must be so hard for you guys. So sorry. Stay strong, Mama." I read every word like a punch to the chest. They were rewriting the story in real time, making me the villain in a play they directed. By the time the truth reached anyone, their version would already be gospel. And then my phone buzzed again. A new message. "Benji, the bartender from the local dive my parents visited almost every night. Your brother's been coming to AA meetings 3 months now. Your parents don't know." I stared at the screen. 3 months. Mason had been trying to get out, trying to crawl his way out of the grave they'd been digging for him since he was a boy. And now he was too sick to fight. I closed my eyes, and I knew right then that everything had changed. This wasn't just about saving myself anymore. This was about saving him. before the lie killed him too.